welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the Everton 2019-2020 season review. We're going to be running the rule back over Everton's worst Premier League finish for 16 years, in case you wanted any spoilers. So it's going to be an interesting one. We're going to be going right back to the beginning of the season and basically running through the season sort of in order and seeing what went right and what went wrong. I think there was more of the latter than the former, as you can probably tell by the way the season's panned out. But we'll get straight into it. We go into the season with obviously I think it was about 6 or 7 new faces, wasn't it? We had Moise Keane, Jean-Philippe Gbamin, not John Paul Gbamin, Teddy. We had Keane, Gbamin, Fabian Delph, Sidibe on loan, and Iwobi. Oh, and Jonas Lissler, almost forgot about him. We had a couple of new faces. There was generally a decent sense of optimism, like after an alright season last year, that we could kick on. There was the general idea around Marco Silva was that he was an okay manager this time last year. I know it's unbelievable to think it now, but there was a lot of people who still very much believed in Marco Silva going into the start of this season. And we go to Crystal Palace on the opening day, getting a 0-0 draw. How are you feeling going into the season? Start with you, Owen.
Do you know what? I was fairly confident, to be honest, because I thought that the way we'd finished the season, even though we'd lost Garner and we were short a centre back, I thought this was before Mason Holgate rise to fame. We brought Keane in with Calvert-Lewin. We got Sidibe cover right back. I thought that. Still thinking improvements on John Joe Kenny. The midfield, we had Gbamin and we had Gomez, plus that experience with Delph. So yeah, I thought we'd be all right. I overestimated Marco Silva's management ability. The truth being that he was severely flawed. And I just underestimated how other teams would do in the league, who ended up finishing above us. I thought the team would do well and we'd be in and around a certain pack of teams, but I just think that we overestimated ourselves and underestimated other teams. And yeah, we need to learn lessons as a club for that. But going into the season, I thought we had a good start as well in terms of fixtures on paper that we could put some points down in, but it never really did. It never really did get going.
Never materialised, did it? I mean, we got a couple of the first 2 home games we won, and I think at one point, certainly after the Wolves game, I thought we could be all right this season.
Yeah, the issue always was with us though was even with them first 2 home games, Watford and Wolves. Watford really should have got a point if you look back on the tape. Bernard scored, and then they have a few gilt-edged chances. I think Deeney in the second half and Decore. The Wolves game, they came back. They were pretty poor at the time. They had a bad start, and we nicked a good header in the end. We got through in the cup, Lincoln, but Palace away was just an ordinary performance from Crystal Palace.
It was an ugly game. Now I think it was really windy, wasn't it? I think.
Well, they had the thing with Zaha as well. Was he staying or was he going? They had another summer where they didn't spend anything. So from the get-go, they were sort of battling against it to try and keep their heads going in above us in the league. Whereas we were going into it trying to chase every team to win it because we felt pretty good. In the end, the issue was always, I think, not over expectation, but we overestimated certain individuals at the club, and that's probably brought down where we are now, to be honest.
With that in mind, do you want to go and name some names over people we've maybe overestimated?
Well, the manager, Silva. I would say we overestimated the reality of what Moise Keane could probably do in one season.
Yeah, definitely.
We overestimated, I would say, Gylfi Sigurdsson's ability to just continuously score goals despite the fact he doesn't do much. And I just think we and then I think we underestimated other teams in and around us as well.
Yeah, I think that was the most depressing part of this season for me, was watching other teams just overtake us.
Yeah.
It was really, really depressing. And what was interesting is that after that Wolves game, we were in the top 6.
Yeah.
And we go into the international break, and then we come back, and you're thinking, we could kick on here. We've got some winnable games. So we go to Bournemouth away.
I'm sure we'll talk about what was the moment in the season for you where it didn't feel right and there was just a big change in mood, that Bournemouth game, because we were 6 literally after the Wolves game. Then after that Bournemouth game, it just started to all get a bit toxic. I remember the silver out that was sprayed along random streets by Goodison. That the whole mood around the club just changed, and it never really got back after that.
Yeah, it was so bizarre, because I remember feeling pretty good during that international break after we'd beaten Wolves. And then we literally, I think it changed in 90 minutes against Bournemouth.
I don't think we ever really got it back then.
And I mean, it was understandable why so many people were angry at that display, because, I mean, they've still gone down. Bournemouth, they're not a very good team, and we were so disorganised. I remember that Callum Wilson goal where half the defensive line was just all over the same side and give them a free run on goal, and it was just the offside line was a diagonal line and all that. It was unbelievable, and the defensive side of it was appalling.
But I would say from that moment on, the mood really shifted. It all got a bit weird very quick.
Yeah, and then of course we play Sheffield United, who we know have, in the benefit of hindsight, have had a very good season. But at this point, they were still 6 games into a new Premier League season as a newly promoted club, and we got beat at home off them. I think that was the point where I really started to lose confidence.
Yeah, it's all a bit knee-jerk thinking about it, about how many games, that 4, 5, 6 games into the season. But after that game, I put a tweet out saying the manager had to go, because there was no way from me after that he was ever turning it around, and I probably underestimated Sheffield United in doing so there.
Yeah, I think we all underestimated Sheffield United, but I still think that from an Everton perspective, watching those games unfold, it's understandable that we could start to lose confidence, because we just didn't look like we had any ideas, did we? And I mean, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying that from then on, Silva was always a character I found that was easy to just. He was a very disposable manager, in my opinion. No one was really bothered about him. There was no real affection towards Marco Silva from anyone, really.
No, there wasn't. And to be honest,
people weren't bothered.
Yeah, and then of course we go on, we lose a few more games, Man City, Burnley. Then we get a decent win against West Ham, which sort of bought on a bit longer.
There was real speculation after that Burnley game, though, that there might have been a change then.
Yeah.
Just before the international break. I think they have 10 men, or we have 10 men, or we had 10 men.
We had 10 men, Coleman got a red.
Yeah, and then what I think that was the real depressing thing from them was, I think we were in the bottom 3 after that game, and then you just looked at teams who were I think Burnley and Palace were fighting out for 4th and 5th at that point, and they hadn't spent anything. We'd spent loads, and there was real questions at that point.
And obviously the questions didn't get answered at that stage, but we did get a good response against West Ham. It was a good win. Played pretty well. That's probably one of the best performances of the season, to be honest. And I mean, that tells you how poor a lot of the performances were. And then we go looking like we might have just turned a corner again. And we go 2-1 up against Brighton.
Yeah.
And then VAR steps in. And I remember watching this one. This was really painful, because this was probably the first time, VAR was brand new at the start of the season. This was the first time that we'd really been shafted by the VAR. And yeah, it wasn't enjoyable, because it cost us that win, and we ended up going on to lose it, of course. It was sickening, wasn't it?
Yeah, the issue with that was that it just felt like we, no matter what we would do, because we changed it against West Ham. I think, was it Bernard who got injured early on in that Brighton game?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Sigurdsson came on, and then everything just felt a bit cyclical with it all, and yeah, the real good factor that was there in July went very quickly.
Yeah, of course, we lost that Brighton game late on. And then the next game is the Spurs game where Andre Gomez suffers a horrid injury, which was, again, another game marred by VAR where, for me, I think Spurs got such an easy ride off the VAR. We maybe should have had a penalty. And for me, the referee was very weak that day. I mean, I've gone on record to say that I think Andre Gomez's injury that day is a result of Spurs players being emboldened to put in hard, aggressive challenges because they were getting away with it. And the referee, and we were being had off on a regular basis at this period by referees, as is quite often the case in certain periods during an Everton season, that the referee seems to, really have it in for us. But those two games in a row, Brighton and Spurs, were real sickeners in that respect for me.
Yeah, I just felt at that Spurs game that we could have probably won the game, and the referees really didn't help. I think it wasn't Mark Atkinson against Spurs.
I think it was, yeah, it was.
Yeah, but I remember saying I was as bad a refereeing performance as I've ever seen, because that was woeful, because they were getting away with stuff constantly. There was a couple of penalty shouts in that as well.
Yeah, there was about two or three penalty shouts for us in that game.
Yeah.
All of them were waved away, not even using the VAR. Or once the VAR was used, and it was blatantly obvious, but they still didn't give it. Yeah. But for me, I think that what annoyed me was that the way they were letting Spurs get away with so much, I think it emboldened players like Son to snap into Gomez the way he did. I don't think those players do that if the referee's clamping down on it.
No, that's true, but I think there was also a sense of, the referees were poor, but we weren't a strong team. We didn't have any strong characters. There was no one coming out fighting for everything. I think
no, there really wasn't, and that was actually exactly what I was going to move on to next, because in the wake of that Spurs game, there was the obvious fallout over Son and Andre Gomez, who suffered a serious injury, and our club captain, Seamus Coleman, decided that he'd rather go and console the perpetrator of that, Son Heung-min, than actually look out for his teammate, Andre Gomez. And that, for me, really knocked me sick. And what also knocked me sick was, at this stage, Marco Silva as well was not speaking out against it. Marco Silva also just was very spineless. He took it way too easily and didn't stick up for anybody in the post-match presser.
No.
And at this point, I felt like the club had completely lost any sort of character, considering that the manager and the captain were both behaving so spinelessly. It just felt like there was no real Everton fighting spirit left in this team, and it was horrible. That was probably the most depressed I've felt during the whole season, or certainly maybe not depressed. There was worse to come, but certainly the most. Where do we go from here? Almost like it's like, what can you do when your captain and your manager don't give a shit?
But my real concern was at that point, because we were sort of in limbo with the whole situation. We were really struggling at the bottom of the league, and I thought, well, if the captain and the manager at that point didn't have the passion and the energy,
they didn't have the guts
to call this out, how are they going to? How's the whole team going to?
Are they going to help fight us out of the relegation battle if we end up in one?
Yeah, I mean that characterises Marco Silva's time at the club, though. I remember when we haven't come on to his sacking yet, but when he was sacked, I said that was the biggest thing that was the problem with his leadership. Like, the club had no leadership in that capacity. Like, used to get walked over constantly. Like, the referees would, we had 2 VAR decisions go wrong with us in back-to-back games in the Brighton and Leeds Tottenham game. Didn't criticise them at all. The year before, Jurgen Klopp sprinted onto the pitch and he won't say a thing about it. He just gets made to look a show of. This Son incident with Gomez won't condemn anyone. It's
cowardly, and that's not the character you want to see from an Everton manager.
No, he wasn't an Everton manager. there was arguments for keeping him. There was people who liked him. I've been in that camp myself. But it was just even around this time, I think, like every time, everything would, he was an unlucky manager, and it was showing. And we're an unlucky club, and you can't have both. And it was just the timid sort of mumbling,
the response to it. I think
we've got to just respect the referee and all that. Was like, you don't. Like, that was when that was for me. You said before, when did you know the season was going bad? Obviously, season and manager are two different things, but that Spurs game was when I joined the cause of this guy's not an Everton manager. He's not going to be an Everton manager. That could be quite late for some people, but when I saw the way he reacted to the Son thing, I was like, no, he doesn't get it.
No, that I think that was probably the point for me. I think it was really starting to lose it with the Sheffield United and Burnley results, but I thought he got the West Ham win, and I thought we were unlucky against Brighton, so I thought, you know what, let's give him the benefit of the doubt for now. But that Tottenham game really sunk me, I think, with Marco Silva, and then obviously we move on. We got a win at Southampton after that, which was actually relatively decent. But then, Norwich at home.
Yeah, everything bad about Everton at that point just boiled over that day. The substitutions, the in-game manager over, the general no energy to go on the pitch and fight in the first place. The fact that we never really at any point under Marco Silva earned the right to win games. It was all because we played well, but we won. There was never any, we're just going to go on the pitch and roll our sleeves up today at any point. It was just, and then it just all came out on that day. And I don't think they went on and won another away game after that.
No, they didn't.
There we go. I think there was the low point of the season where we all started to collectively look and think we could be in a load of trouble. In relegation, I'm talking here as well. I'm not talking.
Yeah, we could say we certainly looked like we were going to go down at that rate, having lost that game.
We looked at that December as well, and even if we had the top 6 teams, and then we even had Newcastle away, who I don't think we went on and beat them, but I don't think they'd lost many home games.
No, they I think they were unbeaten at home until we beat them.
Yeah, I think they might have. I think Leicester and us beat them consecutively. But at that point, I mean, we had Burnley, and that's a tough game because they were above us. So at that point, you looked and think, we don't know when our next win's going to come from here. And this fella's not really fighting. The team doesn't fight. The fans are resigned, so we need something here to give it a lift because we look like we're sinking.
Well, then obviously we lose to Leicester and Liverpool, which was two chasing experiences in different ways. But I think at that point we already knew he was going to go. I think they were just free hits for Marco Silva to basically have his nose rubbed in it, which was typical of that kind of manager who wasn't really fighting. So, it was horrible. He was hung out to dry a bit in that respect, but he kind of hung us out to dry. So, either way, I think it came back to bite him, I think, and he lost his job, obviously, after the derby. And then we've got, this was a very depressing season, as you can already tell, guys, but this is the... Sorry, go on, Owen.
I would say, how did you feel after that, though? Because Silva had went and we went through this, 10 defeats in 15. We were linked with very nomadic managers as well. We didn't realise the calibre of manager we'd end up getting, but I remember feeling pretty low after that because I didn't know when the look was going to change. Yeah,
no, I did feel very low, but I was kind of glad that he'd gone. And I think when I heard Duncan Ferguson was taking charge of the Chelsea game, I suddenly felt a lot better because I thought, we've got a fella who's got experience being a real fighter for Everton, taking on the job. And in that sense, he didn't disappoint, did he? Will go on to that game now, that Chelsea game at home. That was probably the high point of this season, if you ask me. Yeah, we were still very much in the doldrums, even after getting the 3 points, but it was a fantastic day. Just everything about it. It was, you can't put it into words. Just, it was Everton in a nutshell, and it wasn't terrible, but Everton, it was actually Everton. Yeah, Terry, what about you, mate? I think watching that Chelsea game, watching Big Dunk go mental and hug ball boys and, wearing Howard's watch and the sweatbands and, DCL scoring. And
it was just what the club, it was the supporters, it was the team needed. It was, he injected Everton back into Everton.
Everton, yeah.
What should be Everton? We're not a fan base who've grown accustomed to or feel entitled to class teams, but we've always felt entitled and been used to strong combative teams. Like Moyes' best teams and best times where it wasn't like he was blowing teams away off the pitch. We've never been a team like that, but we'd outwork them, we'd outfight them, and that's the identity of the supporters. I mean, we were getting linked with managers, and basically, I think it was Jamie Carragher said on Sky going, he was an advocate of Benitez because he was saying, well, what Everton should be doing is blood and thunder football, where you just bloody the nose of the opposition team, and that's what Dunk brought in. He got in, and those players who, let's be honest, weren't famous for their work rate and their commitment, like Schneiderlin and Sigurdsson, ran themselves into having injuries, for that game, the Chelsea game. And Chelsea, let's be honest, they'd been hit and miss a little bit, but they were in the top three, and we were in the bottom three, and we absolutely battered them in the sense of, just desire and wanting it, and they got Goodison back on side, and we had, I think it helped as well the way that Charleston scored, that's how we're an header, and it was just this is Everton, this is
proper as Everton, this big Dunks Everton, this friggin',
exactly.
Big Dunk, big powerful headers pulling us out of the mire, basically, which is what he did himself as a player.
Yeah, it wasn't as if he came in and he had revolutionised the football. It wasn't that we'd had that malaise come over the club where it was just, we'd had a gutless, sort of spineless, never win an away game, never look like we can beat any team who's got a good work rate, that version of Everton. And he just literally just picked it up and said, right, get out there and run more than them, and I don't want to see you snapping into tackles. And they did it, and it was fantastic. That game was the most uplifting of the season because it made me think. I mean, I didn't think we would go down because we've been a lot worse and didn't come anywhere near going down, but it made me think we're not going anywhere. It was just we're going to end up with Moyes, and we're never going to go down with Moyes, but we're never going to do anything either. And it was just a case of, it gave us that breathing space, that though the changes that Dunk made of putting two strikers up front and just working on compact, aggressive football. It was this cuts ice with our supporters, and it did. And everyone came out of that game going, yeah, we're going to be all right. It may not be Dunk for the rest of the season. Some people wanted it to be Dunk for the rest of the season, and I wasn't one of them, but fair enough. He'd done that well. I can see why people wanted that. But it was great. It was a great result because it's just what we needed as a fan base and as a club. And not only that, the emotional, passionate side to it as well. It wasn't just the result, the 3 points. It was the hugging the ball boy. He came out in the club suit, which he doesn't wear usually, and he had the sweatbands on still. It was just this is proper throwback, stuff. This
is proper it's when Everton was still Everton.
Who did you want, by the way?
Sorry?
Who did you want as manager?
Who did I want?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like everyone else. I didn't know who I wanted, but I knew who I didn't. I didn't want them.
Yeah, that's exactly how we all were, I think.
I didn't want Moyes. I didn't want to ruin a good thing by having Ferguson just because of the way Solskjaer was at the time. I thought he'll do well for a bit and then it'll fall away, and I don't want to dislike Ferguson in a few months. And that was what happened. I didn't even dream Ancelotti. Even when he was free and available, I thought, what he'll do is he'll go and have a little holiday in Toronto, and then he'll come back in the summer to an elite level club or a Champions League club. Maybe not a title-winning club, but then when obviously we spoke to him, we got him, and I was like, bloody hell, I didn't expect that. But no, I wasn't sure. I just didn't want Moyes. I wanted something new. I wanted something different than what we'd had before. And Moyes was stability, but he was not. There was nothing fresh about Moyes. It was I didn't want him. Who did you want? Did you want Dyche?
No, I
genuinely, that's a question. Did you want Dyche?
It's been believable, to be fair.
I would have had him. I said at the time that I've looked when we were being linked with Pereira and Eddie Howe. I think that I would have had Dyche over them, but I was more in the Benitez camp. I wanted Benitez, but
see, I was very, very, very do not appoint Benitez.
Roger.
Not because he's an ex-Liverpool manager, because there's been loads of them, and as if years down the line we needed the manager, and I'd have Klopp in a heartbeat. But for me, the only reason I wouldn't hire Benitez was because he called us a small club, and I mean, I know it might have just been a little jibe here and there, but those things don't wash with fans, and fans would never have took to him.
Yeah.
Well, on Benitez, I would have had him in strictly football sense, but I would have had him in the context of if you'd have presented all those managers who we were linked with, like Eddie Howe and Vitor Pereira and Moyes, I was like, well, if it's out, and then Benitez, if it's out of them, Benitez has got that higher level of quality. He would have been like a poor man's Ancelotti. He's like he would have done better than any of them, I think. But I didn't want him where I was like, oh, he'd be great. It was sort of like, well, he is the best there. He's achieved more than anyone else and what have you. But then I was like, you know what? Because the comments don't bother me at all. At all. They did at the time, obviously, but now it's sort of like, yeah, whatever. If he comes here, it shows that he doesn't think that anymore. If he ever did, but I thought we're onto a hiding for nothing if we appoint this man. He's 2 defeats away from sacked himself because
he's an ex-Liverpool manager.
He's an ex-Liverpool manager who does after dinner speaking about Liverpool to this day. It's like you need someone, and I like who we ended up getting in Ancelotti, who's got the supporters' trust, and it's people didn't like Silva because what's he won? Who is he? Didn't like Koeman, he didn't get Everton, blah, blah, blah. These are all valid points for different people. But I was like, we can't go in with an ex-Liverpool manager because he's going to get that held against him. Football isn't a passionate game, and I can't judge people, but it will undermine anything he does. He'll have to win every game, and he's not going to.
Put it this way, have Liverpool ever appointed an ex-Everton manager?
No.
Which one would you have wanted?
Yeah. Would any of them ever been good enough? No, to be honest, I've got to be honest with you there, but I don't know. It would have been held against them. It's the English game isn't like that. I mean, I think that's a sign in England, not in Italy and places like that. It doesn't bother them a little bit in Italy, but in England, that's a bit tin pot. That's why Birmingham and Villa and all that can have the same managers, and Bournemouth and Portsmouth and Southampton all have the same managers. It's because they're small. Well, not Villa aren't, but most of them are small clubs who aren't bothered, whereas we're Everton, we're not having some ex-Liverpool manager who'll do us for a couple of years, and then when he retires, he'll just pretend he never was here. When he's finished up, it'll still say ex-Liverpool under his name. We didn't want that. I didn't know. I thought he's still better than Howe, and he's still better than Vitor Pereira, and he's better than Moyes. But he's not palatable to the fan base. I thought Moyes will get it because he's more palatable if he's not desirable.
So I just looked at it and thought the caliber of manager we're getting linked with here is not very high at all. Benitez will do. I still think he would have done well as Everton manager in terms of results. I just thought we needed some stability, especially when you saw when Ferguson came in. It was very much compacted football. We weren't playing out from the back or nothing, were we? So I thought if we're getting results like this, he'll just carry it on. And
I thought he'd sort out our main problem if we got him, which was we were conceding. The corners were as good as penalties against us because we were conceding from every set piece and we couldn't defend. And I just thought, you know what, if nothing else, he'll come in, he'll put Keane and Mina right at the back, and he'll have them sitting on the 6-yard box. And he'll get us nice and comfortable and safe in mid. He'll just do another Allardyce, is what I think, but he'll be less abrasive as a personality. Now, obviously, we didn't know at this point that Ferguson was going to come in and turn Mason Holgate into an absolute demon, and Calvert-Lewin was going to suddenly find decent form and score loads of goals. But I thought, Mina and Keane will be ideal for Benitez because he'll just sit them deep, and he'll sit Coleman deep, and he'll play like Schneiderlin ahead of them, and he'll just sort out the defence, but he won't do nothing else. And yeah, I just thought if it has to be someone, it'll be him. But I don't want him.
Yeah, and what you said there about the abrasive personality thing, that's why I kind of weren't going all in on Dyche, because I looked at him and thought he's just going to be compared to Sam Allardyce, and I don't want that. I'd rather just, if he got it, would be like a fresh slate where he isn't coming in firefighting. So I don't know, it was a tough situation, but I didn't think we'd get Ancelotti.
So yeah, obviously, just a few days after the Chelsea game, Ancelotti gets sacked by Napoli.
Yeah.
It's interesting that when Dunk was managing us in that Chelsea game, Ancelotti was still contracted to Napoli.
Yeah.
Then they go out the Champions League and he gets the sack.
It was out there though, wasn't it? If you remember, it was widely reported that after this Champions League game, he's going to get sacked. So I don't think the owners, the Everton boards, were like, we'll wait for Ancelotti. I think they were seeing who became available and just thought, we'll stick with Duncan Ferguson until we get someone we want. Because he was told, Ferguson even said at the time, how many games, and he just went Chelsea, and he went, all right, chairman, like to Bill Kenwright, he went, I'll do it. And then obviously they must have said to him, we're trying to get Ancelotti, but it's, obviously the games are coming thick and fast. It's December. We just take a few more. And you could tell Ferguson hated every minute of being in front of cameras, but he thought, if we get a top manager, I'll do the extra games, and that is how it's worked. But yeah, it was a weird time, wasn't it? We were happy to have Dunk, but obviously we knew he wasn't keen on staying, and we had this other top manager who people were laughing off, like, oh yeah, yous aren't going to get him.
I didn't think we had any chance, to be honest, and I thought he just wouldn't come to Everton. I just didn't think he'd want to put what he's done on the line to come to Everton, but it's worked out pretty well, I think, for him as well, because I think he's proved in a way that he can come into a club and get results despite the fact he hasn't got Hollywood players.
Yeah, that's a good point, but also what surprised me is, like, obviously we appointed Ancelotti and he settles really well in the city. I mean, who'd have said, like, that Ancelotti would love going to Crosby Beach?
Yeah.
I know.
That's for me, that's one of the real breaths of fresh air, because I thought he'd come in and I was hoping he wouldn't be, like, up himself like Ronald Koeman was when he came in, treating it like he was doing the club a favour, and I think he's come in and his attitude's been exemplary.
Yeah.
He ticks every box as a manager for Everton. He's got the pedigree in the sense of no one will doubt him like they did Marco Silva. Like, he's like a student learning his craft. We don't want that at this club. So he's big enough for the club. To be honest, he's a bit too big for the club where we are at the minute. He's big enough in status. He's got the right personality in the sense of he's not like, Martinez, who goes too far and he's buttering the supporters up to the point where it's ridiculous. But he clearly has a genuine like for the club and the area and the what have you.
And the fans, I think he really, yeah.
He's got the stomach and the backbone that we need for an Everton manager. And one big thing on the pitch as well is he's got an easily identifiable style. He gave the team an identity. Now, people might not want us to play that identity while we haven't got the players. A lot of people going, don't like this 4-4-2, we haven't got the midfielders, I don't like this, I don't like that. But you can't point to what Koeman wanted us to do, especially Silva. Like, Silva said he wanted to play 4-3-3 and then never played it. And we had this mishmash, hodgepodge of players, and they didn't really have a set style and identity. That's something that everyone pines after for the Moyes era, because that team had an identity that you could point to. And so now does Carlo Ancelotti's Everton. We just need to plug in better players to suit it. But you can see what it is. We know now we're not going to buy players to play in a 5-man midfield. We know now that we need certain types of wingers. We can't have a name. Everyone, myself included, wanted David Neres at one point. Now everyone knows, no, won't get him. He doesn't work hard enough. It's going to be someone else. So it's easy to nail down what a type. Back in the Moyes days, you'd have known if you were linked with a player going, he's not a Moyes player, we're not going to get him. Now it's easy to grasp hold of.
You said that, but we got Billy Electon off.
Yeah.
There was always the odd outlier, but you'd never have been linked with a player who I use this as an example, but we'd have never have been linked with an Ozil type player, because he just wouldn't have fit in a Moyes team at all. Like, whereas you didn't know who we were going to buy, like under Silva and you know, Koeman, and less so under Allardyce, he wasn't here long enough. But now under Ancelotti, you know, even already after a couple of months, you know, well, he's not going to fit. You know, he's not going to be an Ancelotti player. He's not going to work because he won't fit that system. And as time goes on, we'll see it more and more. But he ticked every box the second he came in, had everything going for him. He did that. He united the fan base. There was no one who said, "Why are we getting him?" And it basically, he made it what we needed. We needed a manager who the supporters liked enough to not blame the problems on when.
It was a unanimous seal of approval, and rightly so, because he is one of the best managers there is.
Yeah, it was. Now the players are getting the blame, not the manager.
And if you ask me, that's correct, because the players are the problem.
Yeah, we hopefully will get that stability now, because it won't be turn on the manager if we have some bad games. It'll be, why aren't these players playing to his level? Like, and that's what we need as a club: stability and trust in a manager. It's what Moyes built his whole career on.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Another thing, it's not solely on his reputation in the game as well. When he speaks after poor performances, he genuinely speaks for the fans. So after the Wolves game, he was talking about like the spirit of the team, and it's nowhere near good enough. But he doesn't strike me anyway as a manager who hides behind the team. Because you could have seen someone like we got Jose Mourinho, for example. He'd have come in and he would have sort of hid behind the team, because he'd have probably made a few mistakes as well, and it would have just been
You blame the players, yeah, but
with Ancelotti, he talks about standards. He doesn't point anyone out or any referees.
For me, I think Ancelotti strikes me as a manager who desperately doesn't want to blame the players, but he knows the players are at fault. I was just going to touch on, obviously, Ancelotti comes in, he gets us like 2 decent wins. First away win in God knows how long against Newcastle. Everything's great. We lose to City, which is, you know, not great, but
close game.
It's City. It was a bit of a free hit, and then time for the real. Well, we actually voted in on our award show, didn't we? Our low point of the season, getting knocked out by the under-12s. I thought we had a chance of winning it for once.
Yeah, it was like, I think we might win this, so that means we definitely won't win it, even more than when I think we won't win it. It was just a really horrible situation that. I think then you had like the Finch Farm 11 or 12, or how many of them there were the next day at Finch Farm.
Storm the ground and they asked for brands or something.
It was just very weird.
They asked for the players, didn't they? And brands had to like appease them.
Sort of mediate, yeah.
Yeah. Lowest point of the season.
I forgot about all that. I was, I think I've just said, I was in the Black Horse that day. I was completely inebriated by full time, because like literally every time something bad happens, I'd order another pint, and it was just like, you know, it's like an Everton drinking game, but wasn't for a laugh.
Well, that whole incident showed a side of Ancelotti that we hadn't had in previous managers, and he just literally battered it away, like no problem. Like, they asked him in the press conference, and the media were like itching to like make this a big thing, you know, mutiny at Everton fans and all that, and he just went, "No, it's done. Happens all the time in Italy. Fans turning up at the training grounds and worry about it." And that was it. It was the end of it. It just showed.
Well, to be fair, it does happen. It happens in Italy all the time, to be fair, so he's not wrong.
Yeah, it just showed what an experienced manager he was, that he just thought, he knew, he smelled what they were after. He was like, "Nah, we're not making this a big story," and just literally shut it down, but not in a sort of like, you know, we don't want to talk about this, it's not a big deal kind of way. He just laughed and went, "Yeah, it was a bad result, not good enough, the players aren't good enough, I've told them all. And the fans, yeah, nothing to worry about, it happens all the time." And then that was it. Everyone forgot. There's a reason you could forget about it, because it was forgot about pretty quickly at the time, and that surprised me. I thought when people went to
hang over us for a long time.
This is going to be a problem. We're going to have players who want to leave and all kinds, you know. Like, and at that time, didn't care if they did want to leave, frankly. But it just showed that what Machiri said it on TalkSport when we appointed Ancelotti, and it rang true. It was like, this club needs an older, experienced manager, because young managers, and most managers really, are only 3 defeats away from disaster at Everton. The expectation is too high for an Eddie Howe, a Marco Silva, whereas someone of decent standard and experience, like a Carlo Ancelotti, can just turn around and go, no, don't worry about it. This is how you get out of this situation. Here's what you do about this. It'll pass. And it has, for the most part. It won't ever work 100% because we're Evertonians, but it has, for the most part, calmed the supporters down somewhat. Doesn't feel like that at the minute, but after the Wolves game and that especially. But when you think about what it was like under Silva and those who came before him, there's a lot more relaxation now. The biggest anxiety now is, can we keep hold of the manager? Not, is the manager good enough?
Yeah, that's a very good point. But of course, after this debacle with the derby and that in January, we had the transfer window, and you spoke there about how well he batters off the derby debacle and the fans storming the training ground and all that. But what I love about Ancelotti, as much as pretty much everything, I mean, everything about him is bloody great, let's be honest, but the way he bats off the media full stop, I think when the transfer rumours come in and he just like shut Sky down for like saying, pretty much outed them for like talking a load of rubbish during a press conference, and I think that was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, he can handle. He knows. He said straight away, didn't he, in the build-up to that Liverpool game? He said who he is and a Liverpool fan for the journalists. He was like, he'd either been briefed or he knew. It was like, this club gets a certain type of treatment from the press, and I'm not having it. Like, no, like, you're making stories up about us signing players. You want to make a big deal out of the fans coming to the ground, and like, I don't know, you're all frigging Liverpool fans.
Baying for blood, basically.
You're all loving it. You want Everton. You want an Everton, a negative Everton story, and you're not getting one.
It was kind of a thing to me when I listened to that. He didn't say anything like that. It was more of a case when he was saying that. He was saying, look, you might have been able to get a story out of these previous 5 managers. You're not getting one out of me. You're matching it kind of way.
I think it was literally, it wasn't even like a jab. I think it was just literally holding us over and just winding them up. Like they try and bait you, so he's going to bait them.
Yeah, it was good. His off the pitch game is great. It's just he's got to work with what he's got on the pitch, and that's none of that's his yet. But it obviously didn't do any business in January, and like that pisses a lot of people off. But let's be honest, the best business is usually done in the summer, and nobody knew we were going to have COVID-19 do this, did we? So I think, knowing what we know now, somebody might have done their business early in the January, but well.
Yeah, well, obviously we go into the lockdown with a much more, acceptable league position, if not amazing. We'd recovered. We'd started out 15th. By this point, we were 11th, I think, at the start of lockdown, which, again, not great, but we pick it up again in June with a derby. They're about to win the league at Goodison, and it's all hell's going to break loose, and it doesn't happen. There's a real positive for this season. I mean, everyone thought that was written in stone, that they were going to seal the title at Goodison, and they didn't beat us. Fair play. I thought we played relatively well that day.
I remember going into that game. It was all of a bit of a unknown, and what really came to pass with the last couple of games towards the end of the season, I thought would probably have happened from the start, with just the motivation of the players. But in terms of like a tactical performance, that is probably the most impressed I've been from an Everton team in a very long time, with the fact that they just stuck to the task, and it just looked so smart. We looked refreshed. Looked like we had ideas, and fair play. I think we talk about Carlo's the result, not the results. I think we've got very good results in terms of the points we've got, but the league position that it can look a bit sketchy. But the off the pitch and the on the pitch really has been a bit. He's done the on the pitch that's not been perfect, is basically, but that day from when we came back after lockdown was really, really impressive. We looked at the team, we were very well coached.
Yeah, it was a very good display, and we done well. We were unlucky not to win as well, of course. Davis hit the post.
No.
But yeah, that's Everton in derbies. That's just luck, innit? You know
if we had any luck, Ancelotti would have done them. He would have got a perfect game plan to nullify them, then hit them on the break. And if that shot that hits the post goes in off the post, like it would for 99% of other clubs, like then you're saying, Ancelotti's got Klopp's card marked and what have you. But obviously can't factor in the fact that Everton won't get anything ever against Liverpool. So no one's that good. But it was a really good performance. Like, it also arrested some of the fears, like, we hadn't played any friendlies in the lockdown and we'd come off some bad results before the lockdown. We had the Arsenal and Chelsea defeats, and the Chelsea defeat was dreadful. Like, we were really bad that day. So obviously coming back from the lockdown, a lot of people thought it wouldn't happen. And then when it did, there was a little bit of a concern, like going, are we going to be like Schalke? Are we going to be dreadful here? And, Liverpool going to win it at our grounds. Obviously City made that not possible before the kickoff.
Yeah, that was relieving. That
wasn't a sure thing. I still think in another timeline the lockdown didn't happen and they did win it at Goodison and it was a full Goodison, because City playing Burnley with crowd might have been different, but it didn't happen, and thank God for that.
But anyway, we moved on. We won the Norwich game and the Leicester game, and things were looking relatively rosy. That was very impressive. It was all down to the tactics most of the time that sort of got us over the line in those games. But it all went wrong, really, didn't it? With the Tottenham game and the Wolves game. And we saw the team for, let's be honest, what it really is. And it's a bunch of spineless individuals, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not a miracle worker, is he? He got us the points in quite a few games at first. Like the Leicester game, they were absolutely killing us in the second half, and then he changed it. Put Tom Davies in the space that James Maddison was occupying, and they suddenly, started to fall away. But then, as the players' motivation drifted after Spurs, it was like, he can't do it with players who are unwilling, and that's what it showed. That when we dropped the points to Spurs, Europe looked out of reach, and then the players just fell off a cliff. And he said in the last game of the season, he said, what I've told the players is come back with more motivation, because he saw it, and that is almost in a roundabout way better, because he's not going into next season with this very short turnaround conned by any player thinking, he's great, and then he's going to find out down the line that he's
Carlo Ancelotti's seen enough players in his time to know what makes an all right player.
Yeah. None of those players can pull the wool over his eyes now. He knows now he can't rely on certain ones, or he shouldn't rely on others as much as he probably does, and he's realised now the scale of recycling of players that needs to happen in the summer. Whereas if we'd have gone back from the lockdown and played well in every game, there'd be players who probably would still be in situ next season who shouldn't be.
Definitely, yeah. And I think obviously we had some terrible results, the Wolves and the Spurs game, and then of course the Bournemouth game on the final day. We won't mull over these too much because we've had post-match reactions very recently to those, and I think the three of us have done many of them together, and we've made our voices well heard about how depressed we were after those games. So, but we'll round it up anyway with the end of season outcome, which was a 12th place finish, 49 points I think we finished with, which is, let's be honest, it's not good enough, is it?
No, but it's happened in spite of Ancelotti, not because of him.
Absolutely.
This season, and I know it's an overused expression and it's been used for Everton quite a lot recently, but it's never been truer than now, is a season of transition where you switch from one manager to another, and usually when you switch manager, the change isn't that dramatic, but it is, isn't it? Let's be honest. You're going from Marco Silva to Carlo Ancelotti is a big change, and this half-season I think should only be looked at as, did he start to implement his ideas? Did he make that change? And he did. He came in and he carried on what Duncan Ferguson did, but there's been a lot of things he has changed, like the playing out from the back style, the right back being the third centre back. These are all Ancelotti things that are now getting in place, and there's things that he's brought in which we can't do yet. Like the two central midfielders. Clearly, we haven't got two central midfielders who were fit at the end who could play it. But if we had had Gbamin, maybe it would have been a lot better because he might have suited it. You just don't know. There's a lot of unknowns, but the things you can hang your hat on, say, well, yeah, he's come in, he's put his ideas in, and more importantly, put his standards in. He's now no one can get away with it now because everyone knows what this manager expects, and if you can't deliver that, then you're not going to play.
Yeah, I think that's certainly, we've got to see what he brings in. I think it's all eyes are now on the transfer window. Obviously, we've got to bring in a better standard of player and players who, like you say, fit that mould of Carlo Ancelotti's like new system. Because it's quite a complex system when you think about the way we sort of adapt at times. We're going to need the right kind of personnel to make this work. For me, we need players with energy, bite, and a bit more interest in the midfield. We've been shackled with the ones we've had this season, and it could be a complete game changer. That's what we've got to hope anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely, we'll round off with that anyway. It's definitely a case of must do better next season, but signs of life, hopefully, certainly courtesy of Carlo Ancelotti, if nothing else.
Well, Ancelotti's sort of like average point he's got so far. If you put it over like a full season, it's 60 points, isn't it? So
I think we'd have finished 7th if we'd have had him all season on average, or in his form position in the form table since he took over. I think we ended up 7th, so not bad at all. And hopefully that's a kind of what we'll be pushing for, that kind of position. Hopefully next season if we can get it right. And like I say, it's just over to the transfer window now and get the right players in. We'll see what happens. So yeah, there you go, guys. Let us know your opinions on the 2019-2020 Everton season. It wasn't exactly amazing, let's be honest. But yeah, let us know what moments you enjoyed, what moments you didn't enjoy. I think we've probably covered a lot of them here. But if there's anything we've missed, definitely let us know there. Drop us a comment. Give this video a like and give Toffee Blues a subscribe for more content over the transfer window and whatnot. And until next time, thank you for watching on the Toffee Blues.